After India gained independence, one of the most mysterious parts of our country began to reveal its secrets: the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Hidden deep in the Bay of Bengal, these islands were not just pieces of land. They were worlds of their own, home to ancient tribes that had lived there for thousands of years, untouched by modern civilization. These tribes were India's living time capsules: the Jarawas, Onge, Great Andamanese, and among them the most secretive of all, the Sentinelese. No one truly knew who they were, how they lived, or even what language they spoke. So the government of India decided to study them, not to disturb, but to understand and protect them. And to lead this mission, one man was chosen: Triloknath Pandit, an anthropologist, a scientist who studied human societies. Pandit formed a small team and traveled across the Andaman Islands, meeting different tribes, studying their ways of life, their culture, and their connection with nature. He filmed everything. He documented their customs, their languages, their beliefs, and eventually he set his sights on the most mysterious of all: North Sentinel Island. It was the year 1967 when Pandit and his team made their very first attempt to reach North Sentinel. When they arrived near the island, the team could see movement among the trees. Around 20 to 25 people appeared at the shoreline. But as soon as the islanders saw the outsiders, they panicked and ran deep into the forest. Pandit tried shouting words from other tribal languages, hoping they would understand that he meant no harm. But the Sentinelese didn't respond. They vanished into the forest. The team slowly explored the beach. They found small huts made of leaves and branches, traces of fire, and something that surprised everyone: coconuts. But here's the strange part. Coconut trees don't grow on North Sentinel Island. So where did they come from? Pandit realized this was their way of saying welcome. The team had brought coconuts as gifts earlier, and the Sentinelese had accepted them. Coconuts were edible, valuable, and something new. For a moment, it felt like a small connection had been made, but communication was impossible. They didn't speak any known language. They didn't want contact, and they made that very clear. In the following years, Pandit and his team continued to visit, carefully, slowly, never crossing their limits. They studied other tribes too: the Jarawas and the Onge, tribes that were once as isolated as the Sentinelese, but had slowly started interacting with the outside world. From them, Pandit tried to learn more, hoping to find a bridge to reach the Sentinelese. But no one knew their language. No one had ever lived with them. Still, Pandit refused to give up. In one of his later visits, the team tried something new. They brought along gifts: pigs, toy cars, aluminum utensils, and coconuts. They tied the gifts together and left them on the beach, then backed away, showing they meant no harm. When they returned later, what they saw was shocking. The Sentinelese had killed the pig and buried it along with some of the toys. They took only the coconuts and utensils and left everything else behind. It was clear they didn't want animals or foreign objects. But they did like coconuts. That was their only link. For years, contact remained tense. The Sentinelese would come to the shore, watch from a distance, sometimes shout or wave, but they never allowed anyone to step foot inland. And if someone tried, arrows would fly. There's one moment caught on camera when the team stood far from the shore and suddenly an arrow struck near the cameraman's feet. The tribesmen laughed, celebrating their warning shot. They weren't trying to kill, just to say, stay away. For more than 2 decades, Pandit and his team continued their efforts trying to understand without intruding, but no one had ever been accepted by the Sentinelese. Until one day, something changed. In the early 1990s, a new researcher joined Pandit's team, Madhumala Chattopadhyay, an anthropologist from India. She was one of the first women to join these dangerous expeditions. Before going to North Sentinel, Madhumala spent time with the Onge and Jarawa tribes. Her gentle nature and patience helped her connect with them deeply. For the first time, the tribal women and children began to trust the researchers, and they grew fond of Madhumala. They even called her doctor in their language. Her compassion became her greatest strength. When the time came to visit North Sentinel, she joined the team, becoming the first woman in history to approach the Sentinelese. As usual, they came by boat, carrying coconuts as gifts. At first, the tribespeople appeared on the beach, watching silently. Some held bows and arrows, ready to defend their land. But something unusual happened. The women among the Sentinelese stepped forward and gestured to the men not to attack. That was the first sign of peace. The researchers slowly pushed coconuts into the water, letting the waves carry them to shore. And then, for the first time in human history, the Sentinelese came forward and picked them up. They didn't shoot arrows, they didn't run away. They accepted the coconuts, smiled, and left peacefully. For 24 years, no outsider had ever come this close. And in 1991, that moment became a breakthrough, a silent handshake across centuries. Madhumala later said in an interview, "They were not hostile. They were cautious but also curious. I never felt unsafe among them." For once, it seemed like trust was possible. But Pandit knew even trust had its limits, because as much as the team wanted to know them, the Sentinelese wanted to remain unknown. The visits continued till 1997, small trips just to drop coconuts or gifts, always from a distance. But then, something dangerous began to spread in the nearby islands. Chickenpox. For the Sentinelese, who had no immunity to modern diseases, even a simple flu could be deadly. So, the Indian government and the Anthropological Survey decided to stop all contact permanently to protect them. After 1997, the world stopped trying to reach the Sentinelese. The island was left alone. No visitors, no expeditions, no boats allowed within a 5-kilometer zone. For years, no one saw or heard from them. It was as if the island had vanished from time. But then came December 26, 2004, the day of the massive Indian Ocean tsunami. The earthquake shook the ocean floor. Waves rose higher than buildings. The Andaman and Nicobar Islands were hit hard. Fearing for the Sentinelese, the Indian government sent a helicopter to check if they had survived. As the chopper approached, soldiers looked down to see if anyone was alive. And then, out of the forest, a man appeared on the beach, bow in hand. He looked up, aimed, and fired. The arrow flew straight toward the helicopter. The pilot immediately pulled up and left. But that single arrow gave everyone the answer they needed. The Sentinelese had survived. They were alive and still defending their island. Researchers later said that the tribe probably climbed to higher ground before the waves hit. They must have known what was coming, perhaps passed down through generations, signs in the wind, in the sea, in the behavior of birds. Their deep connection with nature might have saved them. Even after the tsunami, the island changed. The sea floor around it rose slightly, pushing coral reefs closer to the surface, but the Sentinelese remained untouched. Today, North Sentinel Island remains one of the most isolated places on Earth. No one is allowed to go near it. Even the Indian Navy protects its boundary. The Sentinelese live there as they always have, hunting, fishing, and living in perfect balance with their land. They don't need electricity, phones, or money. They live free. But they also live in fear. Fear that one day, the outside world might take that freedom away. When asked about them in an interview, Triloknath Pandit said, "They are not hostile people. They are just protecting themselves. If someone came to your home uninvited, wouldn't you do the same?" He was right. For them, every visitor is a threat, a possible disease, a danger, a disruption to their way of life. Even though the world is curious, even though the media calls them the most dangerous tribe, the truth is simple. They just want to be left alone. In the last few decades, a few unfortunate incidents have happened. Some fishermen who drifted too close were attacked and killed. And in 2018, an American man named John Allen Chow secretly tried to enter the island to preach religion, but he was killed as soon as he set foot on the shore. The Indian government did not retaliate. They did not send soldiers, because the Sentinelese are protected by law. Their island is their world, and the world outside is forbidden. So today we can only look from afar at this small green island surrounded by turquoise waters, knowing that it holds one of humanity's last untouched civilizations. Maybe they are the only ones still living as humans once did, wild, free, and deeply connected to nature. Maybe in their silence they're reminding us of something we've lost, a life without greed, pollution, or borders. And so as the sun sets over the Bay of Bengal, North Sentinel Island remains a mystery, a world frozen in time, guarded by people who wish to stay invisible. And perhaps that's exactly how it should be.